Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We have a very special guest during these very troubling times. In a recent study by the World Economic Forum's Shaper survey, nearly 50% of millennials chose climate change and destruction of nature as the #1 problem facing the world. 91% of those surveyed agree or strongly agree with the statement, "Science has proven that humans are responsible for climate change." Our current governor has said during his State of the State speech in 2013, I quote, "First thing we have to learn is to accept the fact, and I believe it is fact, that climate change is real. It is denial to say each of these situations is a once in a lifetime. There is a 100-year flood every 2 years now. It's inarguable that the sea is warmer and that there's a changing weather pattern, and the time to act is now," end quote. It seems that most of our politicians and leading scientists would like to make us believe that man-made climate change is settled science. Folks, do not despair. Our speaker tonight comes to us with a wealth of information and knowledge. He emigrated from Malaysia to graduate from USC with a Bachelor's of Science, Master's of Science, and finally a PhD in aerospace engineering in 1991. Our speaker is currently an aerospace engineer at the Solar and Stellar Physics Division at the Harvard-Smithsonian Center for Astrophysics. He has spoken at the University of Minnesota, University of Wisconsin, University of Denver, just to name a few. He has had his articles published by Breitbart. The Heartland Institute's CEO has stated that our speaker is a brilliant and courageous scientist devoted entirely to pursuing scientific knowledge. Our speaker was just recently, this past summer, at our Camp Constitution nearby in the Berkshires. I've also heard from a reliable source that our speaker is an excellent marksman. So be very careful. He has been challenged and smeared by many of our fake news outlets, such as the Daily Beast, the New York Times, and Greenpeace, to name a few. Our speaker stands tall for the truth. Ladies and gentlemen, please give a warm upstate New York welcome to climate realist Dr. Willie Soon.
You got me all excited, so what am I going to say? Okay, ready to go. All right, first of all, everybody can hear me, right? Yes. Well, I'm telling you, you guys are really, really a blessing from God, because my usual average size of audience is about 5. It's way beyond my expectations, so thank you, Hal, for bringing me here. Well, as you can see, we're going to try to talk about this thing called global warming. Sometimes it's called global weirding, sometimes it's called climate change, sometimes it's called climate disruption. Sometimes it's even called, in the name of the great satanic gas called CO2. You guys know what CO2 is, right? Right here, that's it, CO2. Then you're going to kill your children and grandchildren. By the way, even though I work as a professional scientist, I do have to say that I come here strictly on my own free will and speak on my own behalf. Thank you very much. Because they are really coming very, very hard after me. As you can see, I appear in the front page of New York Times. Let's stare at this for a few seconds. It's a wonderful planet, isn't it? By the way, it's taken from about 1.5 million kilometers, so it's about 930,000 miles away. It's a very special position that the satellite will sit there to watch the planet Earth. It's a beautiful planet. And these folks are saying that we are going to be here by using this so-called fossil fuel or this carbon dioxide coming out. My God, we're going to kill everything. This is really, really a very strange proposition, by the way. They have it all the time backwards and sideways and all whatever you have it, it's just all wrong. And then we got leaders like this. I'm sorry, we'll talk about science obviously, but then you can see this whole thing has been hijacked by political movement. We have the Pope essentially quoting the Bible, say that we are all blind and stubborn and stupid if we don't believe in UN IPCC. If some of you may have even heard the news, Stevie Wonder only say that we're either blind or stubborn, something like that, but we're not so, stupid. But then you can see the Pope is actually asking us that we have to trust the scientists. By the way, 91% or 99% or 97 whatever percent. Science has never ever worked by voting, isn't it? It's nothing but the truth, I'm sorry. Yes?
Yes.
Because it's very, very silly. In fact, how do we even get to this stage by saying that, we're going to vote how dangerous this carbon dioxide is. If you don't believe it, I'm going to put Willie Soon in jail. If you don't believe it, I'm going to put Pastor O in jail. Are you kidding me? It doesn't work like that. So I'm going to answer the Pope that I'm a scientist. I'm a humble scientist. I disagree with you. So I'm going to try to answer the question on science. Then I want to start by this favorite scientist, the science advisor to the Pope, at least to the Pontifical Academy in the Vatican, which just gave a recent talk at Oxford University, making that sort of claim that we're actually trying to kill our children and grandchildren by using fossil fuel if we don't stop it right now, because that's what they want. And then, typically, science talks will be like this. They were showing graphs, and this is one of the graphs that he shows that actually bothers me a lot. Because the good professor, when he showed this graph, by the way, is showing you that the warming by 2180, so that's about, 90 years from, 80 some years from now, that it shows that the planet's temperature will warm basically anywhere from 0 to about 8 degrees, according to the great professor. And probably it will be around 4 degrees Celsius. By the way, that's about 8 degrees Fahrenheit. And then the great professor asked, he pointed at 5% level, which is about 6 degrees Celsius warming, or 12 degrees Fahrenheit. The great professor asked, would you all be willing, so he's playing the psychological part, would you all be willing to put your loved one on that plane that has 5% odd of crashing? 5%, by the way, science is all about number, but believe me, you all can understand that. It's only 1/20. I guess the great professor is exaggerating quite a bit, by the way. The chances of, if you look at the latest statistics, I look at one of the May 2017 statistics. The chances of an airplane crashing now on average is 1 out of 29 or 30 million. The professor is off by only a factor of 1 million. That's highly embarrassing for a person who actually try to manipulate your emotion rather than give you facts, okay? Which bothers me the most. This is the kind of people I have no respect. I'm so sorry I disagree with him. By the way, I hope he come and hear this talk, by the way, the tape is for him to see. And then, I want to show one of the latest results that is being produced by my good friend, Christopher Monkton of Branchley. He's actually a lord. He's from England. This is one of the results that we produce. This graph is actually showing you that what should you expect the climate, the planet to warm. Let's say if you double the amount of carbon dioxide in the air, okay? In the early days, the estimate is all very high. So it's very much in agreement with the great professor who gave the talk in 2017. But apparently that they refuse to read some of the papers that we've been publishing, okay? And they are showing lower and lower number. And we're completely ready to defend how we came up with that numbers. This is about discussion, this is about debate. If anything that I do that's wrong, guess what? Am I going to hide or saying that, oh, no, you're wrong, you're deniers and all that? I'll just say, I'm wrong. So I apologize. So I love to have a debate with this kind of professor, by the way. So I'm quite confident about a number. This is why part of the debate about science is that what are the facts? We are giving you the facts, so please let's discuss this topic. So this is why, it's very bothersome. They put their own grandchildren, kids, as if that we all want to murder our own children and grandchildren. How dare you, pull that kind of stunt. So I like this quote the best because this guy, Steve Malloy, is one of the heroes of mine. He kind of have a very good saying. If God really hated CO2 so much, He wouldn't have made life depend on it. By the way, CO2 is indeed gas of life. So as I will show you later, how the planet really depends on this particular CO2 that we need. And then there are a lot of those who call America last and the hater of America. This is one of my nemesis, by the way, Professor Michael Mann from Penn State University, who is finally announcing just a week ago that, my God, Syria has now signed on to this so-called Paris Climate Accord. So we have about now 198 countries signed on to this, except the United States that we are saying, we actually signed already by Obama, but President Trump, June 1st of this year, said that we're going to pull out of it. Okay? I think that we should do it. It's not about chit-chat and talk. Let's look at the facts. Look at that. 21st century, starting from 2000 to 2016. Look at the list of all the countries. Who are the ones that actually reduce their carbon dioxide emission? It's the United States. We are number one. This is the reason why we don't have to pull out UNFCCC. By the way, this is not the reasoning. The reasoning is completely flawed. Okay, this is all related to economics activities and so on and so forth, right? We are in a stagnation of our economy. We borrow ever more and more and more money, and they're just still talking about this nonsense about limiting carbon dioxide, which really we need all of it as much as possible, by the way. And then I took the courage from hearing my good friend Pastor Earl Wallace, who actually said that God created man in his own image. We are part of nature, my God. Am I not natural? Don't you see that I'm so natural? I mean, something so artificial about me, right? That I know how to manipulate computer. We turn silicon. You know, this sense that's spreading the seed. We turn it into silicon. We make computer. My God, is that wrong? And then we know how to fertilize. This is just to show you the statistics of how through science and technology, if you mess around with science and technology, that really bothers me, excuse me. Because we are able to feed ever more people. These people I really don't like people, by the way. So maybe they have. I like them to state their position as clearly as possible. I like to have more people in the whole world because I think it's a blessing. Okay? So don't be afraid. And indeed, this is part of a religion, the CO2 religion, by the way. It's not a formal religion, but it's as close as religion as it can come because none of their ideas and their statement can be scientifically tested or challenged or studied or whatever. Okay? This is why I like this quote from Thomas Jefferson, the founders, who say that the moment a man forms a theory, his imagination sees only the objects, the traits that favor that theory. Shame on them, because this is trying to point to how we humans are kind of have to, very, very susceptible to that sort of flaw. And here's one of the examples. The UN, right? You all know about, anybody know what IPCC is, right? It's the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. So obviously intergovernmental, that's not a scientific, inter-scientific or whatever. But it shows you that in 2010, they were already reporting on the stuff that is coming out 3 years later, like 2013. That they say that the next report will be more worse. It's a very curious phenomenon, by the way. Every time they use the word climate change, somehow the climate change can never ever be good. It's always a bad thing. It's a really strange phenomenon. Actually, I haven't seen anything in life that you have a change that is only produce negative outcome. I have never seen such a proposition. And yet it's very common phenomenon in the United Nations report. By the way, they're having a very major party, spending huge amount of money in Bonn, Germany now for 10 days or so, by the way. And then, by the way, for the next report that is coming out, the 6th assessment report, they've been producing this since 1990, by the way, so it's been ongoing. It's kind of hard to get rid of this whole thing. I just wish that President Trump would just say we'll pull off the whole thing completely, not to wait till 2020, for example. And this is the stuff that they are actually actively saying. They are already distributing documents directly, essentially saying that it's going to be worse than we can and that sort of thing. So the report that's supposed to come out in 2022, by 2017, now they're a bit earlier, 5 years ahead of time, to say that thing is going to be big, bad, and bad, and bad, and bad. Okay? Now it's time to take a pause and think. Here's this puzzle. So see if you guys can answer this. You have a bat and a ball. Together they cost $1.10. The bat actually costs $1 more than the ball. So, who wants to give me the answer? How much does the ball cost? 10 cents, right? In fact, you guys are close to the majority. You all know that 10 cents is wrong, right? By the way, over 50% of MIT students answer 10 cents. And then there are large college students up to 80 to 90%, including Harvard, by the way. But you know the right answer is 5 cents. Because answer 10 cents only satisfy one of the criteria. $1 plus 10 cents is $1.10. Right? But $1 minus 10 cents is not $1, is 90 cents, it's not $1. The only solution is 5 cents. 105 plus 05, 5 cents is $1.10. 105 minus 5 cents is $1. Right? It shows you that that's how they get you. They get you through this kind of sort of human tricks, by the way. This is actually a Nobel Prize kind of insight in economy, by the way. Now I want to get down to business. I'm going to explain science, obviously. We'll talk a lot about science. I'll show you charts, but please don't be afraid. If you ever have any question, maybe not tonight, you know what I mean? Think about it. You know a bunch of us, Pastor Earl Wallace, Howard Shadley, myself, and Ed Clement, all these people were here. Just, contact us. I want to show you this children's book, produced by so-called Laurie David, which is here next to Al Gore, the producer for Al Gore's Inconvenient Truth. They were really bad luck because the first day this book came out, I happened to be at the bookstore. That's about 2007 or so with my eldest son, so we went there. I picked up the book, and then I turned on the page. The first thing it said, the more carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, the higher the temperature climb. Alright? Okay, let's go. And then they even, it's very simple, they always have to lead you. The more is high, so the lower it is, the less warming, so the cooler itself. Okay? So now you can see this relationship for yourself by looking at the graph to your left. Okay? So you take a look. So that's the page. Page 18 is the flip page. So you can see how well CO2 and temperature go together. Up and down like dancing. Okay? So they show this graph. What a marvelous graph. Okay? First of all, you can see old time 650,000 years ago from your right hand side, and then present to the left. You can see with the label, you can see that carbon dioxide, which is the orange curve, go up, and then the temperature go up, and then it follow that, right? Willie Soon should go home if this were to be true. But they were really bad luck because you know why? They actually put out, because of the words that they use, they want to fool kids. This relationship has been known for a long time. It's the reverse, okay? They actually were even changing the graph to try to cheat, to hope that nobody will catch it. And I caught it the first day the book came out, so I felt bad for them. I wrote a letter to Scholastic, the #1 children's book. They refused to change it for a while, by the way. The correct curve is, temperature happened first, CO2 goes up. So, science is very important, remember. You guys know about causality, right? Cause and effect. If you get the cause and effect mixed up, you're not talking about science, by the way. They're trying to tell you that, lung cancer causes cigarette smoking. That's basically what they're saying. It's a very puzzling thing, and then they still want you to say, oh yeah, you're so smart, I'm clapping hands, and so good. Just ridiculous, these people. And then when I wrote to them to try to correct the truth, just simply asking for fair and balance, they refused. They say, who are you, Willie Soon? You troublemaker, you try to do this, do that, By the way, it's not, I want to show you some quote from the scientific literature, okay? It clearly says that Antarctic ice cores show carbon dioxide increased by, that much. I'll explain to you what parts per million mean. It's actually 600 years for this particular case after the warming. This shows you that the way the carbon cycle works in the atmosphere, right? You have to warm the ocean, release more of the CO2 carbon from that. It's not the other way around. That's the problem. And then another example, more recent paper, shows that it applies every single time you study this. So it's almost as close to scientific facts, kind of a confirmed facts. Because every time it's not the CO2 go up first and then the temperature follows. It's always the temperature warm or cool and then the atmospheric CO2 go up and go down in response to it. Okay? So when I wrote a letter, they actually sent in a very disgraceful kind of guy. Professor Michael Oppenheimer, Barbara Schweitzer, professor of government and politics, by the way. He's a trained chemist, but he didn't make it in chemistry, so he turned into a politician. So, look at what he said. He said he had reviewed the figure. It appears that the labeling of the axis has been reversed. As a result, the curve label this should be done and blah blah blah. But, they always have a big but, which is really like a big but. The description of figure in the accompanying text is accurate. It fairly represents the current state of scientific knowledge in terms that will be comprehensible to 8 years old. They expect the 8 years old to actually see behind the BS, right? I'm so sorry. They have a dare to write that kind of letter, put it on my face. Don't you think these people should be fired? I'd like to be like President Trump. You're all fired, man. Anyway, now, by the way, what year is this now? 2017? Am I right? 2017? I want to tell you that you still got this kind of people around. This time it's another scientist. I really felt bad for them. But the question is that it's so sad. Would you hire guys like this? You know, they are working for the government, we are paying their paycheck, having them a comfortable life. So this is the talk, by the way, it's a very prestigious lecture. Maybe not as prestigious as this one, right? The one that we're giving here. It's called a von Karman. Von Karman is a very famous fluid dynamicist from Caltech, California Institute of Technology. So this person by the name of Alex Garner, a scientist, I wouldn't call him a scientist, I should put a quote there, so I'm sorry. He gave a talk on sea level and climate change. Here's a screen grab. He said, okay, you see how a scientist giving a talk? By the way, he did indeed talk to the public, so don't blame him. He's trying to make it simple. So he said, well, it's simple. When CO2 goes up, temperature goes up. He put a quote. He's sitting there, he don't dare to say this, but he put a quote, he's quoting this Professor Richard Alley from Penn State. Okay? And then he showed the same graph that I was trying to show you, right? Or the one that those guys were plotting. So it's been a long time, we know this for a fact, it's so clear, so you all should just go home because, you know, carbon dioxide is so dangerous. But the poor guy, by the way, when you zoom in on the results, I bet that if you're not scientific trained, you really don't understand what's going on, but you look at the label of the axis, this is the problem, this is a scientist. I'm so ashamed to call them a scientist. By the way, if you look carefully, on that label there, by the way, this is not temperature in absolute unit, it's a temperature change, reference to a period. So 0 actually don't mean anything, but the fellow is so clueless. This is a real full-time scientist. I don't trust his measurement, by the way. He converted to 32 degrees Fahrenheit. Do you understand? It's the temperature change relative to something, and then he go and convert to absolute unit in Fahrenheit because, you know, you're American, you all don't understand what Celsius is in Fahrenheit. You're so, you know, you're not so smart. What a mistake, by the way. It's just so bad. I mean, this is 2017 and he's still pulling the tricks. Trying to lead people to the false conclusion that it's CO2 controlling the climate system, which means carbon dioxide go up, temperature go up. But he didn't, throughout the whole talk, he didn't talk about the relationship that is well known, that is the opposite. This is how scared they are. Okay? They couldn't even stand on this kind of simple fact. Don't even want to explain to the audience. Such a disservice to humanity. Now, we've got to talk a little bit quickly about the hurricane. Because it's been, you know, people are saying, rising, right here is going to cause the hurricane over there to change something. I don't know, I don't think so. By the way, even my emotional talk is not true, it's about numbers. So I try to explain to you. So is it true that some are getting worse? By the way, this is how they presented this result in our so-called national assessment a few years ago. Okay? And they actually showed this graph to try to say that, look, if you look at the so-called PDI, which is actually the intensity of the hurricane, starting in the North Atlantic, so they only plot that result showing that it's increasing. But then they immediately got caught. If you add more data in, you can see. When this is our US National Assessment Report and we're paying 13 different government agencies to produce that kind of weak result that show only the red line, didn't want to have an audacity to show people the red. They're actually hiding data. These data are universally agreed is there. They're really using graphic tricks, short-term kind of impression. You know, they really think that you can go home and go sleep and hide away. Nobody's going to know about this thing. I mean, what kind of people is this, you know? And then, of course, that's what I'm saying. The most accurate forecast you can is that every time there's a hurricane, there's a drought, there's forest fire, it's going to be all CO2, okay? It's 100% chance. In fact, here's one of the statements. I like to put this quote because this guy is actually a liberal. His name is Professor Clifford Mass from University of Washington. But he couldn't even make himself, he has a bit of a conscience, by the way. He's a trained meteorologist, very smart man. He said that you just cannot pin this global warming on something that extreme. Because to claim that the hurricane is caused by CO2 is basically like, you know, you put like 0.1 to 0.5 degrees Celsius to the, you know, like 28 degrees or so, because that is about the temperature that in the sea that you need to have this so-called vertical convection. The water is going up to, let's say, the troposphere up to try to do something in the atmosphere. Minimal. So it's really not possible. So indeed, we can say that these are the people that is guilty if carbon dioxide is doing that. By the way, when those hurricanes are striking on land, I have to tell you, my only sincere most thing is that thank God for fossil fuel, because without fossil fuel, if we were to be running the whole machinery under all of this, wind, solar, and all this stuff, we'll be really, really serious trouble. In fact, one of the nuclear power plant in Houston was actually working, still functioning. Without that, you'll be even far worse condition. But here, talking doesn't matter. You look at the time in which from 1926 to 69, by the way, that's when the CO2 level is slowly rising, but very, very small amount. And then it started to go up very rapidly, let's say after 70 or so. You look at the statistics. It was a lot more strong and landfalling hurricane during those past than right now when you have much higher CO2 level. Are we saying that the rising carbon dioxide caused less hurricane? Maybe they like to claim that. By the way, science, you cannot do that. This is just some statistic to try to guide you that what they're claiming is just not true. And then if you want actual number, if you rank by how strong this hurricane is, look at that. Number one, the strongest ever detected is 1935 Labor Day's hurricane. Okay? 1935, there's not much CO2 at that time in that sense, And then you can look, 1886, Harvey is only ranked about 14, okay? So you couldn't even try to make a case at all. I'm so sorry for them. Because they just don't want you to see this number, by the way. Indeed, that was 1935 is one of the strongest. You have up to, I don't know, that many people died, right? But does that also have to do with anything? It really has nothing to do with CO2. By the way, flooding. Look at the complaint about flooding in Houston, right? The event that happened in September. It has nothing to do with any CO2 or anything. It's about us. Human population here is to try to show you that the level of impermeable surface, right, in the 1940s versus 2017, we got far more of this because we built all this stuff. It's about planning. It's about city planning, not enough drainage. That sort of problem. What does that have to do with carbon dioxide in the first place? And if we want to think about flooding is bad, here's an example of very, very serious flooding in December of 1935, by the way, not related to hurricane at all. But there is a major flooding in downtown Houston. 54 feet. Okay? That shows you how powerful natural forces are. Okay? Don't mess with it. This is as if, indeed, this cartoonist get the essence of the thing. It is as if, by the way, the first question you should ask them is this also indeed. What level of CO2 do you want it to be? And if I lower it to, let's say now today 400, if we lower it to 300, what does it do? Less hurricane? That's basically what this guy is saying, right? If you sign a treaty, maybe the hurricane will go away, I don't know. And here's the only sure thing about hurricane. This is what it does to all the solar power plant, according to those guys. Not only that, during this kind of time, during disaster time, you know what you always get? You get that kind of scum. Excuse the language, this is really bad people. I call him the most subsidized human being in the world, on the planet. And he's still trying to propose that he can try to, put this Tesla solar power for Puerto Rico. Who actually, by the way, I just saw a number, they need about $94.4 billion from us. Whew, a lot of money to spend. But now, let me have a proper introduction about who Willie Soon is, okay? Now, so that you know where I'm coming from.
When it comes to denying the human impact of global warming, Republicans have it down to a science.
If climate change is a problem, and do you believe it is or not? Do you believe...
I'm not a scientist.
I don't know the science behind climate change.
Well, listen, I'm not qualified to debate the science over climate change.
What is your take on global warming for climate change? No, I'm not a scientist.
I'm not a scientist. It's their favorite line. And when they do actually talk about scientists, they usually point to people like Dr. Willie Soon. He's the darling of the right-wing climate denial caucus. He says greenhouse gases just aren't that bad for you. Senator Inhofe has repeatedly cited his work over the years. The same Senator Inhofe who once said this about climate change.
The fact that all this is happening is due to man-made gases, I really believe it's the greatest hoax ever perpetrated on the American people.
The greatest hoax ever perpetrated. And to back him up, he pointed to people like Dr. Soon.
These are scientists that cannot be challenged.
I'm not too sure about that, Senator, because the New York Times reports Dr. Soon has accepted $1.2 million in funding from the fossil fuel industry, which he hasn't disclosed in most of his scientific papers. Interesting. A guy pushing back on climate change debate while getting paid by oil and gas companies. Well, I'm not a scientist, but I can sure spot a potential conflict of interest when I see one. So nice try, but don't even try to deny this one, because we got you.
Look in the mirror. Look in the mirror, man.
I couldn't make myself to actually get New York Times, of course, so I follow a copy from Greenpeace. By the way, this is truly a witch hunt. Everything they say is just out of context. $1.2 million over 15 to 20 years, and then all the money never comes to me. I don't own the money. The money comes through my workplace, to my center. You want to sue Harvard or Smithsonian, go for it. It has nothing to do with me. I simply write a scientific proposal. Whoever wants to fund me, by the way, Greenpeace, you are welcome to fund me. As long as you don't tell me what to write and what to say. That's how uncorruptible I am. I think some of this quote is really relevant. Do not fear the enemy, for your enemy can only take your life. It's far better that you fear the media. They will steal your honor, right? That kind. Just really, really amazing to be accused of being a conflict of interest by a guy like Reverend L. Shelton. All right, there's a long story to this, by the way. If you want any question, I'll explain fully to you later. But now I want to talk a little bit about this renewable energy. This thing that is so convenient that all of a sudden that we should not use fossil fuel. But we all know what the name of the game is to tax the air, okay? And tell them that we're saving the planet, right? This guy, by the way, the famous Canadian singer, by the way, he's the Prime Minister. And then, of course, David Suzuki, one of the old-timer hippies, who tell us that we are human like maggots. We're like maggots when he's high on the drugs. I mean, you really trust this kind of people? They call themselves a climate Barbie, by the way. Here's a quote, a direct quote from the UN IPCC official who wrote those reports. He said that we distribute, de facto, the world's wealth by climate policy. Basically, it's a big mistake to talk about climate policy separate from the major themes of globalization. One has to be free oneself from the illusion that international climate policy is environmental policy. This has nothing to do with environmental policy anymore. They say it outright. Do I have to say anything more? And then, of course, the former Canadian Minister of Environment, no matter if the science is all phony, they are collateral environmental benefit. Climate change provided the greatest chance to bring about the cosmic justice and the equality in the world. I like to add the word cosmic justice. I don't know what kind of equation they're looking at. It's more and more of this kind of stuff, by the way. So you have Sierra Club promoting this sort of stuff, right? Kids deserve this clean energy tree. That sort of nonsense. In this showing this graph, I only wanted to point to you how bad things are now. These are really big corporations, okay? Greenpeace, they're not green and not peaceful. They are very, very big corporation. They are running an operation at a $400 million a year kind of operation. So no wonder you keep hearing this sort of a news and stuff like that. Sierra Club themselves is over 100 million. EDF, by the way, based in New York City, Environmental Defense Fund is $140 million a year. NRDC, National Resource Defense Council, these people want to defend nature, these people. Okay, they really have that audacity to defend nature. And then I want to say, if you want to really play this game of taxing energy, you are actually trying to punish people for being poor. Okay? On this graph here, you can see the proportion of the income for people that make less than 20,000 all the way to 120,000 that is being spent. The proportion of the money is being spent on energy, let's say using electricity. There are people now literally in UK, in Australia, who actually don't have money to heat their home. Okay? And these people are still talking. In America, I'm quite sure we have similar situation. There are many, many poor people. Okay? So you really want to propose more tax to energy, huh? And then every single time, I tell you, the fossil fuel company needs to be defended occasionally, even though they're actually buying into this whole business nonsense, really. It's sad. They claim that it's always the coal and the gasoline and petroleum are being heavily subsidized. But look at that, you compare coal, subsidized at a level of 50 cents per unit energy, right? And solar is $230, 500 times almost, right? So every time they make that kind of argument, I think you've got to use some facts to counter them. You know, what are you talking about exactly? Show me your data. Don't be afraid, because that's the way to engage them. Hopefully they will change their mind. By the way, one of the most dishonest things is that they say, this renewable energy, you know what it will do? It will change the paradigm. You'll bring in more energy. They bring me more jobs. This is one of the jobs I like to propose for them to do during the winter. A very secure, clean energy job. And here's for summer, of course. You're going to do something in the summer, you got to work. So one of the jobs for summer will be this one. I got to cut some grass. And then don't worry. You also need to clean the dust, because sometimes the efficiency, the coding and all that is going to be a problem. By the way, my good friend's father was one of the pioneering engineers in Malaysia, went to Australia and studied, got his master's degree, came back, tried to put this system in Malaysia. It never worked in the 70s. Okay? You think about it, it just doesn't work. And then of course, more of this kind of stuff, the windmill doesn't work either. And then this Tesla, he doesn't ask where the electricity is going to come from, this battery, you know. I'm so sorry for this Elon Musk guy. This is why, and then in winter, you know already, you got to clean the snow off the plate, right? This is why the quote from Albert Einstein is very useful here. Of only two things that are infinite, the universe and human stupidity. It's that bad, okay? And then we got Professor Barack Obama, who actually made able to publish a scientific paper before he escaped the office. He called it the irreversible momentum of clean energy. I think you guys study physics, you understand this, irreversible momentum. They're trying to sell all kinds of strange stuff. I felt pity for him, you know, that he felt that he has to write a scientific paper. A paper published in Science magazine. Excuse me. No wonder he's giving a work to himself. By the way, it's so psychotic now, I tell you, somebody got to help them. At least I will be the first one to go and slap them and wake them up. Hey guys, wake up! No violence, but I just say, wake up guys. On the inauguration day, these people hold the audacity in a great state of Massachusetts. I felt really bad living there. My kid really asked me, Daddy, when are we going to Texas? And he really said that we're going to go 100% renewable. These people really don't even know how to generate energy. Totally clueless people. Massachusetts, we want to have what you call 100% renewable electricity by 2035. And then, of course, no more fossil fuel by 2050. This is, by the way, like Ed was saying, they are very well coordinated. This is not simply come from Massachusetts. It's everywhere. California is one of them, and now in United Nations, the party that's going on now in Bonn, Germany, they're issuing things like that. Urgently need 100% renewable. It's everywhere. They push this 100% to the point where they even publish paper in National Proceeding of Academy of Science, a scientist from a professor from Stanford. And then when somebody publishing a paper saying that 100% is not possible, excuse me, the number doesn't work out, guess what he do? He sued those guys. For the first time in the history of science, somebody don't agree with him. He sued those people and say that they're damaging his reputation. This is the kind of game we're playing. This is how small renewable energy is. They don't dare to show you this graph, by the way. They always use wood. This is why I say it's very helpful to look at the graph. The amount of energy supply in the US is coal, oil, and gas. That's it. The rest of it is just very small amount. Right here. What am I going to do about it? You're going to turn the 1% into 90% by just hand waving? My hand will be really, really tired after that. By the way, there's a real physical reason why that we could never ever use sun and solar so easily. It's been tried for a long time, believe me. We come from that. It's called something called power or energy density. It's too dilute of a form. The sun just doesn't shine at night, right? When we're seeing the other way, I'm so sorry. And when the wind don't blow, what am I going to do? The battery technology has been promised just like fusion energy for a long time, it never happened. It's a very difficult class of problem. You don't need the ambitions of Al Gore or Elon Musk to selling this fake, substandard, sub-technology, sub-everything. I'm so sorry for them. I felt very humiliated, really bothered by that sort of attitude. They are the innovator, they have this brain, as if we scientists doesn't know anything, Al Gore, okay, we should go generate 100%. No, we're thinking about it day in, day out, day in, day out. I'm so sorry, it doesn't work. So you can see, right, the wind and renewable, they're way low, about zero. Coal, all this stuff are generally, this is why they are so useful. Okay? I would say we should just use it all. Here's the problem. If you look at the history of quote-unquote renewable energy, do you guys know that we were 100% renewable before? Because that's all we do. We use wind, wood, cow dung, whatever you want. We're doing all those kind of things. From 1800 until now, we're trying to go away from renewable. We're going towards using fossil fuel. We're getting better and better to zero. They want us to go back right now. Okay? This is the idea that they're proposing. This is why I like this quote from Professor Colin McInnes from Scotland, who actually are saying that, the beginning of the transition from wood to coal in the Elizabethan era allow us to escape from this limit of photosynthesis, of diffuse biomass. Later, we found oil, methane, natural gas, and even uranium, which is the nuclear power. That's the highest energy density you can find. In fact, it's way above the chart. You got to go all the way up to the sky to see that the chart if I plot that thing just now under the same graph. And these people are going towards basically more and more expensive and less efficient energy. That's what they want to tell us. It is absolutely a regression, not a revolution like this Al Gore and I'm sorry, Elon Musk again. So please, y'all can read English, right? Can we read this quote together? Here we have a very simple situation. The politicians are throwing money that they do not have at a problem that does not exist in order to finance a solution that makes no difference. What a smart people. I really can help these people. It's a very nice quote. This book was written by this guy who wrote a book called Hubris. But then they say, Willie, you're so wrong, the consensus. There's some consensus of scientists believing this and that, You're so bad. Here, in response, I'll put the man called Galileo Galilei. Because he is being punished by the Catholic Church. In the question of science, the authority of 1,000 is not worth the humble reasoning of a single individual. Indeed, this is the kind of stuff that especially younger kids should take to heart. Okay? That this is very, very important about the aspect of science. Science is not about showing how beautiful you are, how ugly you are, or today I feel better and all that. Nothing to do with it. It's about scientific evidence. So now we're going to study CO2 in the context of all the energy flow in the climate system, by the way, right? So you can see, we are actually dealing with something called the greenhouse effect, which is really true, that this is physically, in physics, this is really reasonable, it's okay. But the most important energy source in the climate system is nothing but the sun. Okay, I'll show you more at the end of it. But now I want to explain the greenhouse effect. Do you guys know what is the most important greenhouse gas in the planet? In the planet, yeah. Very well educated. You see, it's not CO2 at all. In fact, I want to say that if you want to study carbon dioxide, greenhouse effect in the climate system, all you need to do is study this guy, H2O. Or something they call dihydrogen oxide, right? You're going to bend that one, right? But water in all its phases, vapor, ice, snow, and liquid form, which is really something that scientists have been struggling for close to a few hundred years, not able to conquer any of this very difficult problem. So scientifically, it's interesting and challenging. But I want to show you the context of water involved in the climate system versus CO2. CO2, you can only come in the form of, in the air, atmosphere. Okay? And then you look at how water vapor come in. It come into atmospheric composition, water vapor, it go into the surface area, relative humidity, soil moisture, precipitation. Let me click all of them. The water are involved in just about every aspect of this chart. Whereas by the way, it didn't show up, but CO2 only in the atmospheric composition. Oops. Okay. Just to show you how important water vapor is. These people are saying as if that we can tell the water vapor from the evil man versus the natural part of it. I'm so sorry, it doesn't work like that. To show you how important, by the way, talk all you want. To show you how important water vapor is, look carefully at this chart, by the way. It shows the distribution from basically North Pole to South Pole. Minus 90 to plus 90 is over there, minus 90 here. And then showing you the vertical height from 0 to 20 kilometers. The top chart is actually showing you the temperature. So it's warm near the surface, it's cooler at the, up in the air. But the bottom part is showing you the amount of water vapor in it. It shows you how well correspondent between water vapor and temperature is. It shows you the tight relationship, okay? This is why I say CO2, by the way, CO2 doesn't appear like this, right? It's either CO2 illusion or CO2 delusion. By the way, this is a manipulated image. So for that I would say, President Obama wants to get rid of CO2 and then I guess every morning, by the way, I wake up, no matter how imperfect President Trump is, you know, people claim he's this and that. I thank God every day for President Trump, or else America will cease to be. But we have to answer the question, what is climate? It's not simple. Climate, it doesn't work just by talking about CO2 in the atmosphere. I'm so sorry. Just to give you a short, concise way to say about climate, to study climate, you need to understand astronomy, solar physics, geology, geochronology, geochemistry, sedimentology, tectonic, paleontology, paleoecology, glaciology, climatology, meteorology, oceanography, ecology, archaeology, and history. And that's not even complete. You know, it's just a preliminary attempt to try to say, this is how complex this study is. And with their kind of arrogance, they're not able to see this sort of thing from themselves. But science is also, again, not about emotion. You have to ask yourself, can we test this idea? Because it's about hypothesis rejection, right? See if we can reject certain bad ideas, you know, so that you can go on with some clearer path forward, rather than being confused all day long. So did CO2 really rise according to the CO2 plan? Let's look at the climate measurement to see what does it do. First, we look at carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. It's really true. It's been rising from about, you know, 300 to about 400 right now. Over, like, you know, from 1960. So about 40, 50 years now. Right? By the way, do you guys know in percentage what 400 parts per million mean? Anybody want to give the number in percentage? It's 0.04%. So in number wise, it's very, very small. That's why they plot a graph like this, make it look so big. Yeah. The graph is also one of the arts, okay? But the question is also not about the concentration, actually, okay? But anyway, to put an analogy, you know how much carbon dioxide has increased over the last decades? So every decade it increased about 20 parts per million. But 20 parts per million is equivalent to basically just adding 2 more people in the Rose Bowl over 1 decade. I once heard a joke from a comic comedian who said that, oh, if the sea level is rising. By the way, it's rising at the order of about 2 to 3 millimeters per year, or maybe like 4 inches in a century. He said that, you know what, if the sea is actually rising at 4 inches a year and you don't know how to step back, you deserve to die. Numbers are very important, by the way, so don't get deceived by all of this kind of nonsense that they're putting up. But there's a way to test this. There's actually a scientific paper that came out last year to say that the greenhouse effect that they were able to show is actually not showing up anymore. Remember, this is a sure thing. We all know what CO2 is a greenhouse gas, right? Water vapor is, right? It was rising, don't you see? But you see what happened? It was rising from 80 to 90, 92 or so, and then it flattened out. This is actually quite a definitive scientific test, by the way. And you quantify in terms of the greenhouse effect, it's actually not doing anything. Remember, CO2 is rising very rapidly right now, if you remember that curve. So this is the way to actually kind of understand that they are on the wrong path. Okay, to give me a little bit of confidence to try to share this result with you. Remember, they say this is a complicated chart and you don't know how to read this and all that. It's really not that difficult. Just invest a little time. I'm sorry, if you want to know a topic, you have to work very hard to study some issues, right? So that you can be speaking to your peers and your family more, you know, more competently, you know, or ask questions, ask interesting questions, so we will help you. So why don't we just cut CO2? By the way, they always say, oh, this is a safety thing. We should just cut CO2. Fossil fuel going to run out anyway, so we just transition and all that, right? But the problem is that the replacement is just simply not there. Here's why CO2, that we should not cut CO2 emission, because it's a plant for, CO2 is food for plants. This is what I want to show you also, that in your breath, you are breathing out 40,000 parts per million. Al Gore, he breathed out a little bit more because he's holding his breath a lot. So that's about 80,000 parts per million. Remember, outside is only 400. You're breathing out 40,000. That's 100 times more. What are they talking about? We're not, oh, by the way, they say, oh, because we human, now they say we human are natural, so, oh, this one just go in and go out. How do you know? Actually, as a scientist, I ask the question too, how do you know? I want to know. This is magic, these people. Here's an example of why CO2, you should not cut CO2 emission. You know why? Because the more CO2 you have, look at how better the plant grows. Okay? That's a really pure good reason. And then, they want to cut CO2. By the way, there is a point in which the plant will die. This is what I call ecological crisis. I had the opportunities to ask Al Gore this simple question. Given that I'm a scientist, given that I understand greenhouse effect, given that I understand everything, you say you want to cut CO2, right? I want to ask you a simple question. How low you want CO2 to be? Tell me. Tell me exactly where. And then when it's very, very low, are you going to be Al Gore yourself, you, Al Gore, going to be responsible for this ecological crisis you're causing for the planet? You are that confident that you should cut CO2 emission. These people have no moral step at all, actually, because they don't understand the science. They're manipulating the science. They thought people wouldn't understand this simple issue. We need more CO2. That's why we have this kind of equipment that people are selling you. You are actually burning propane to try to generate more CO2 in your greenhouse to produce tomato, strawberry in the winter time. These are how you work in Russia in the winter, Canada, everywhere. We really need more CO2, and these people are not happy when we're putting out CO2. They say it's going to cause the globe to warm, but as far as I can see, it didn't cause that much of a warming, right? Because other factors are involved, so I'll explain that. And they dare to even spend, by the way, they just got caught spending about almost, for US, I guess, the euro money is 587 million to try to say that they want to take the CO2 coming out from, let's say, your kill pipe and then put it in the ground. What are you doing that for? It's going to cost that much money? It's free food for the plants and it's going to make them better. What is the problem? And they are spending money to try to store the CO2. That's a strange idea. By the way, it's proposed also by coal industry themselves. They are so scared that they actually have to buy into this clean coal, all this absolute nonsense, scientific nonsense, by the way. So they want to thought that, oh, some of us could listen to them and play along that game. I don't want to play that game. I'm so sorry. It's just wrong. Even guys like Rupert Murdoch, who say the world is growing greener with increased carbon. He should say carbon dioxide, by the way. 30 years of satellites evidence. Forests grow faster and thicker. He's right, actually. He's not scientific, but then he got information. He got information from Lord Matt Ridley, by the way. And I want to show you there are actual scientific papers just about every few days you see this sort of thing. By the way, more carbon dioxide make the plant, of course, grow bigger. It also make the plant require less water use. Much more efficient because the stomata, these tiny holes in the plant's tissue, actually close down so you preserve more water, so it's much more efficient water use. You can see from satellite measurement for 30 years or so now, the planets are actually greener, and then the efficiency of water use, WUE, are getting better and better. They actually are able to conserve more and more water. This is the graph that shows that. Two of the graph going up showing you that they increase more carbon dioxide, more greening. By the way, we even have evidence. You see that in Sahara, you guys know in Africa, right? Sahel area. Because satellite couldn't do the detection. On the ground study, you actually can show that the last 30, 40 years, Sahara region are getting greener too. Okay? That's how positive the news is. These people are not happy. Don't tell anyone. Please, Pastor, don't tell anyone about this. Something good for the planet and they don't like it. Something wrong with these people. Now I want to tell you actually how much global warming is. If you want to talk about 2 degrees Fahrenheit warming or 1 degree Celsius, right? That's 2 degrees. Oh, 3 degrees, too hot. Really burning me. But I'm trying to show you that if you look at the seasonal cycle in Boston, by the way, Albany is more or less the same. You go from about 20 degrees to about 80 degrees. 60 degrees of change. And the global warming they talk about is actually the thickness of that line, right? Tell me, go ahead, ask every single one, your governor and all, tell them to go find the CO2 or the global warming signature in the state of New York. Challenge him. Tell him, what are you talking about? Oh, scientists say this, scientists, I just show you the graph. Any part of this is wrong? Tell me. This is the dangerous game now that concerns me because I'm a scientist. Because you know why? When they now have a problem because the globe is not warming, so on and so forth, and it doesn't go according to their model, they say now, you know what? It's the model that is right. The world is wrong. You all have heard about this, right? This is very, very worrisome, by the way. They start changing data, for God's sake. Excuse the language, but it's really bad. This guy is actually, I call him Reverend, sorry, he's not a Reverend. He's James Hansen, formerly from NASA Goddard Institute for Space Study in downtown New York. Okay? With NASA, in 1999, they were already realized that when they show the temperature curve, okay, they show that, you know, they were already concerned that actually somehow the US temperature is not warming according to the CO2 religion, I say, because carbon dioxide is rising. You're supposed to show rising at the end if it's true. So they were already worried about that. That's 1999, right? Y'all want to know what happened in by now, 2017, 2016? Guess what they do? They changed the data. The data that I showed before in 1999 roughly is in the blue curve, what we call raw data. And then the final one that is being shown now is that they push this thing down. Make it look like that is a trend. You see now there's a warming trend if you were to play the game. By the way, in science, they are a very strict rule. You are allowed to change this or say this unless you justify and say what it is. As a scientist, I've been in this business for 28 years. I really, in the name of God, I read all of these things. They never give any explanation properly for this. Shame on them, right? And I'm not supposed to talk about this, right? They want to put me in jail, want to destroy my whole reputation on science. This is what they talk about. 2017, the warmest year, whatever they're saying, but look at the data. There are actually no data in Africa. And they say that's record warm. I'm blinking the thing to show you. You will see the news coming out very, very soon. In fact, they already put out for this Bonn COP meeting in Germany. They already say that 2017 is going to be the warmest, whatever, the third warmest, whatever, all this sort of nonsense. But the actual data is not there, it's empty. You know how they got this thing, right? It's from interpolation. It's something very simple. I mean, if you go through some algebra class or something like that, you should know this sort of thing, interpolation. That sort of stuff they're producing. I mean, I'm sorry, it's not even science, it's not even math 101, you know, it's about pure kind of nonsense, you know. And they're putting out there, saying that NOAA say this, NOAA say that. By the way, this result comes from the NOAA, right? National Oceanic Atmospheric Administration. These are people that I don't know what they are doing every day and we're paying them. And then you got also, occasionally they involve, okay, it's not Willie Soon. Willie Soon is just, you know, scientist. In fact, he's an illegitimate scientist, put it that way. And then they got Nobel Prize guy, okay? One professor from Rice University, who, because I guess he say that he loves his grandchildren, so we don't love our grandchildren, that he say, you know, we have to take this seriously because the climate model says so. Remember, they already don't have the data agreeing with them. They say that the climate model is important. We got to use that to see the climate, not now, but in the future, like 100 years, 1,000 years from now. They say the sobering conclusion about the future climate is actually based on a very elaborate model. You can be suspicious if you only use one model, but you say, we got talking about a number of programs give similar result. I already give you a hint. Does that mean that averaging the floor model will make everything better? You know, things that is already wrong. Here's an analogy to show you. According to Professor Coe, Robert Coe, that you can actually take an average of this airplane and then you somehow get a better airplane. You know, you got all these passenger jets, right? In signal processing, you actually can do that. You take an average of each pixel and then you add them together. Actually, it looks like this. That's called averaging the floor model will get something better, you know? This is really a wrong idea, by the way. But something even worse. That's why I say today is a day of really something to tell them back. You give me a faster computer, I'll give you the wrong result a lot sooner. As simple as that. Simply because, by the way, a lot of people are scared by those kind of bullying, by the way. It's really mental bullying. I am blessed that I'm able to understand math and physics quite easily for me. I've been through very rigorous training, so I'm not afraid by that kind of showing. I want to know what the truth is. That's my problem with them all the time. It's about the truth. Here's one more example to tell you how bad the climate model is. Okay, so I'm showing you two curves. One is black, one is purple. But in this graph, I want you to make a guess. What do they change to try to get the result look so different? It does look different, right, isn't it? So this is what they require to change. The black curve is showing you that they set something called the relative humidity, okay, for the climate system to be 84.4%, if I can pick the Algor accent. For the purple curve, they changed to 85.0. So only a change of 0.6% in relative humidity will give you that kind of result. This is called model tuning. They just tune the result, whatever it is. They got thousands of knobs in the climate system. They just set this thing and do whatever they want. And then they try to hide all these things under things. They say, oh, you don't understand, it's too complicated. Don't look, don't look, don't look. Turn away, turn away. Really, really breathless, this kind of a scam. I'm showing you an example. I have another challenge because I studied the sun. I'm going to tell you the end, almost the end. We're going to talk about the sun. This is actually the season, right? If you look at the same location, you film how the sun comes across the horizon, it looks like this, right? Winter is at the bottom, sun is higher angle in the summer, right? So I'm going to ask how good are those climate models. Here I'm testing 24 climate models used by the United Nations report. And ask that if I can measure the seasonal cycle, the one that I show you about Boston or Albany, right? We want to know how good can they do this. Oh yeah, they say we can do that. Okay, because here are all the model results. They're all over the place. All the dots. Okay? And then if you ask where the actual measurement is, right there. That's kind of bullseye, right? I'm going to close my eye, I'm going to throw dots. Hit anything, hit anything? Didn't hit anything, I'm sorry. Just a joke, I'm sorry, it's so bad. But in science, I'm very blessed, by the way. I meet a lot of these kind of good people. So these are my two exciting colleagues, a good colleague from Ireland. They are actually PhD chemists. One is computer scientist, all PhD from the best university in Ireland. But they are doing their own stuff, but then they find this whole thing puzzling, so we work together. So this is one of the work we produce. By the way, most of the things that I say actually are also published in scientific literature. Please, I'm not just joking around. Scientific publishing is very, very important, right? So I publish all my works. But I want to remind you how they actually are manipulating data. They are showing you, I want you to focus on the red line, which is the northern hemisphere temperature, from about 1880 to about now. It shows you that it warm up in the 30s and 40s and then flat out and then go straight up, really, really warm. It does look very interesting, isn't it? Right? If you plot the CO2 curve, it kind of probably will fit it, isn't it? But my question is that, how good is this temperature product produced by NASA, by the way? Okay. Can Willie Soon challenge this? Should I challenge this? Yes, we should. We should study them. Let's find out what's going on, because I really don't know what your sausage machine is doing. So I studied this. They make it really scary, by the way. But it turns out that a lot of those data have that kind of problem. Okay? Did you see the problem now? It's based on those kind of thermometer measurements that it's actually sitting there near the concrete. And then not only that, there's an air conditioner unit coming, breathing air out, and all that kind of problem, by the way. Huge amount of problem. You are not measuring climate, I'm sorry. You're measuring alcohol breath. So, in science also, complaining doesn't do any good, by the way. So, me, myself, Ronan Connolly, and Michael Connolly, we work very hard. We looked at all this raw temperature data. Try to see that maybe should we just start with some place called very, very rural, which means away from big city, right? Away from the way in which we can control. We know what time they go out and do those measurements every day. So a lot of information are involved. So we compile this data set ourselves independently from them. We check very carefully. So we study only 4 regions that we have very high confidence. Rural USA, Arctic Circle, rural China, and rural Ireland. And then we ask ourselves, what can we find? These are the temperature records we can produce. Okay? I hope you immediately see that when we average them, roughly the northern hemisphere, you can see that it's very different from what they show, isn't it? Our 1930s and 40s is very similar to now. Theirs is basically way out the roof. It's partly related to those kind of adjustments that they're doing, that they're playing around. Okay? But so I have confidence in this result because I put it in, I write all my scientific paper, I explain everything in the paper, it's very thick. Please welcome to read. By the way, they ignore this kind of work. I felt so sorry for them. I think this is a good piece of work, by the way. Not to promote myself, I could easily be making mistakes. Please check me. So I want to ask the question, what would they do? By the way, it's obvious it's the sun in some sense, okay? But saying also no good. I actually happen to produce a book also on studying of the sun, just to show you that I'm not also completely crazy or joker. I do study this thing very carefully, scholarly. Here's a comparison with the power coming out from the sun and the earth. The earth, by the way, has no energy. We don't have any radioactivity, is very tiny amount. Okay? It's order of 1 billion difference in terms of the output. So obvious, everything that we do on the planet Earth is completely, the energy is supplied by the sun. Okay? So now I want to show you a short video. Oops. This is the part that I always worry about. Okay, maybe forget about that video. Because time is running short. But I want to show you that the same temperature curve was shown. Now I show you the red curve now, which is actually the estimate of how the sun brightness has changed over time. Okay? And it kind of fit, isn't it? Right? We never design this sort of thing. Science, you could never design this sort of thing. You try to see how well they follow each other. That's for Northern Hemisphere, in case you are curious how USA look like, because this is one way you test your result. That's for USA. Not too bad, but at least it's self-consistent. Science, the rule is that you have to have self-consistent result. But what is the real reason for why they are so close? Actually, it has something to do with water vapor. Okay, the same solar curve, but the water vapor curve now they fit on this, over Northern Hemisphere. So it's basically the sun is modulating the greenhouse effect on the planet Earth, except it's not modulating the carbon dioxide stuff. It's about the water vapor evaporating from the ocean. Okay, essentially that simple. You don't need any other thing to explain anything. It's as good as anything else. But then, you don't, in science, it doesn't mean that I've proven that I win. No! It's just that you want to keep studying exactly more and more. But the point is that at least on this level, by the way, all this result has been published, and I wish that IPCC would read this. But here's the connection, right? Because, you can estimate how big or how small the sun is. But I want to tell you another very small secret. How do we actually know? There's another way to test this. So I keep figuring out more and more ways to test myself, whether I'm wrong or I'm crazy or things like that. It's actually, you can study the Mars, Jupiters and all this stuff to test the idea. If actually the sun is affecting the earth, it ought to affect all this other stuff too, isn't it? Right? It's a very simple test. But the problem in those is that we have less data there. I just show you whatever data we have, okay? In fact, we published a paper long ago showing the ideas that documented all this evidence that actually you can show the effects on Mars, Jupiter, Neptune, Neptune's moon, and Pluto. But today I just quickly want to show you actual result. This result actually available from Viking when they landed on Mars in 1976 to 78 to the new landers that we have, the Mars landers sent by JPL. We actually found that over this time the Mars has been warming. Okay? And you can show by showing that the planet is actually less reflective. Okay, which means more of the heat from the sun stay in the atmosphere, in the Mars, very thin atmosphere. There's no more atmosphere there. It shows you that at least the result is consistent. But one more result I can show you is actually about Jupiter. Because you all know that the global warming has been going flat, right? There's no more global warming. By the way, it's not legitimate to say we have global warming continue. It's been flat for a while now. You actually can show that there are some kind of global cooling going on in Jupiter. Because you remember this curve that I showed, right? This is on Earth. I want to show you that from the period about 95 to now, it's kind of flat. Right? The timing is more or less the same. Because sunlight really travels very fast. You look at the Jupiter size. From about 95 to 2009 to 2014. The size of the red spot has been shrinking, less energetically active. It's self-consistent in that sense. This is why when this sort of thing about science is very, very important. So there's this quote that I like to put out is to say that one does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious, because there are a lot of evil things out there. I actually should be stopped now, but since you guys are still not sleepy yet, none of you fall completely asleep, so I think I can still give you 5 take-home messages. Number 1, there's absolutely no experimental data that support the view that the Earth is warming in an anomalous or changing in a dangerous way. Instead, all we know is that CO2 is the gas of life. And then one thing that we know for sure now, by now, 2017, maybe you would say like 20, 30 years ago, we don't know this answer. We actually can say this statement now. CO2, carbon dioxide, is merely a big player in the climate change. And then this idea that you have a CO2 control knob, like you can turn on the air conditioner up and down, it's an illusion. Because Al Gore never tell me what CO2 knob should be set at, 30, 350 or 100 or that sort of thing. By the way, the optimal thing for the planet is about 1200. We need so much more. Now it's only 400. That's why this control knob is actually no such thing to control the planet Earth temperature. This is, here I really want to, I love Camp Constitution, though I've been learning a lot about Constitution from Hal. For the children here, I really would encourage you guys to really check out Camp Constitution. But then the late Justice Anthony Scalia has this very good saying. By the way, this is also a fault of Massachusetts, because it's US EPA versus Massachusetts and other states. We are the leading state. To try to sue the EPA to make sure that the EPA will regulate carbon dioxide. Because they say that carbon dioxide, quote unquote, is an air pollutant. Because if it's not an air pollutant, then EPA has no business of ruling this. This is basically law and social and political study wanted to change biology and scientific facts. CO2, which is gas of life, they have to put a label air pollutant. This is why Justice Scalia said, okay, if you want to say that all things airborne, whatever the stripe, would qualify as physical and chemical and biological substance or matter that emitted otherwise into the ambient air, then it follows that everything airborne, from frisbee to flatulence, qualify as an air pollutant. Oh, well, I hope you don't do that. This reading of the statute defies common sense. We lost this by a narrow margin, 5-4. I really hope that we will revisit this issue, because as a constitutionalist, this is really bad stuff. Setting so much bad precedents. You can get an update from Samuel Alito, who just gave a talk earlier this year, where he said that it just doesn't make sense if you want to talk about carbon dioxide, but carbon dioxide is not an air pollutant. Because to qualify as an air pollutant, it has to harm human beings or animals or plants. We saw the opposite. These guys, people are trying to say that black is maybe not so black, it's just gray or white, that kind of stuff. Something is very wrong with that kind of stuff, okay? That is truly, truly bad, and trying to use our nation's highest court to try to impose this kind of view on us is just extremely bad, anti-science, I would say. So my message is that, the third message is that the sun obviously is the primary driver of the climate change, and we have very strong evidence to show that. Far greater impact than any amount of thing can be done by CO2. Remember, this only say that rejecting the hypothesis of sun-climate connection is very, very, very hard. It's not impossible. It doesn't say that I prove that the sun does that. And then finally, the part on climate model. Remember, they say the climate model is very nice. It can show you all kinds of moves. It's very, very bad, because you cannot do anything. You cannot do the seasonal cycle correctly. You cannot do water vapor correctly. You cannot do anything correctly. It's just a show and tell, by the way. It's a very different from predicting the weather, by the way. Predicting the climate is completely impossible. Predicting the weather is a very different business, because there you're only talking about a few days, the most. By 2 weeks, you're completely clueless, because there's a very fundamental limit called chaos. Okay? So I call it the giggle effect. It's dominating. So my giggle effect here is not garbage in, garbage out. My giggle effect here is garbage in, gospel out. Which is extremely dangerous, because this is garbage in. How can it be a gospel all of a sudden? This is Al Gore kind of stuff. Finally, I do want to say, as a scientist, climate science is very, very dangerously corrupted and co-opted by all these anti-science forces and players. So we all have to work really, really hard to fight this sort of anti-science and anti-America, anti-everything movement, anti-human, anti-religion, anti-everything movement. I think we have everything to gain by just standing up to them and not be afraid and just say what we have, and then in fact freely correct ourselves if we are wrong, because there's just nothing wrong about standing on the side of truth. That's it. Thank you.
Pleasure to have you with us tonight and to have all of you here tonight. So thank you so much for being here. On the way out, our ushers are going to collect these slips. So if you'd like to come to our program or be reminded of any of these programs, please, we need to know that. So please give us that information. Thank you so much. God bless.